Hello everybody, dual cameras today. Hopefully I can make this a bit more interesting. It's been actually a month since my last vlog, so, well, let's get straight into it. I've actually worked on it a lot, and I think just the reason why I've taken so long is partly lack of motivation, partly I do want to make this a bit more juicy, so yeah, let's go straight into the meat of it. So I'll start with the juiciest parts before we go into this raw, ugly stuff like the okay, it's not ugly stuff, but it's more the raw work related stuff and kind of things that are going on. We'll talk about this in a bit as much as I want to do it now. So let's talk about what's been happening on this front. So, okay, actually it's a bit hard to talk about it without talking about what's been changed first, but I'm just going to do a demonstration first because a lot has actually changed since the last time. I probably cannot recall it without looking at a sprint board, which we'll do later. So to show you, we'll make this maximize and play so you can get full, well, okay, maximize either way. So I guess one of the main things is first we have a new enemy. I've also changed up the UI, well, mainly just where the things are. I also changed up the menu here. It's a lot closer to Final Fantasy. And I'll probably fix a whole bunch of bugs that I'll probably go through in a bit, but basically a lot of it is very functional. Although the UI could still use a bit of work. We also got a bit of input text here. I hope you can read that. I probably will change that at some point. It's just that UI is not my main focus as much as implementation. And so far I'm pretty happy with the implementation. We have the input text there, everything's working as intended. And a fun fact is you see how those hedgehogs are kind of like watching, so one of the things I was pretty happy to implement is the fact that I've added kind of Overwatch attacks where basically, the enemies are there, they're sitting, they're watching, and they're waiting for someone to make an attack before they all counterattack. And just look at that, he's already gone. Ain't that great? And another thing that I'm pretty happy to have worked on is barrage moves, to put it one way. Basically, it's an attack that hits everybody, but it randomly distributes the attack. Oh, and another thing that I've probably worked on that I haven't mentioned yet is the damage numbers. That is honestly happening for me. Yeah, actually there's been a lot, and I hope you like what you're seeing here in a moment. Maybe I'll run another demo just to show kind of more. At the moment, I'm in that mood where I'm not really explaining everything, but yeah, it's just a lot more work has gone into it. This probably the highlights also new. I don't recall. It's been a month. I don't I can't English at the moment, but yeah. Basically, a lot of things have happened. A lot of fixes have occurred. I'm not going to go too much in depth. Just to show you what that looks like as a full not as a full game, but, that's a test scene where I test out combat mechanics and whatnot. So oh, right. There's probably an issue that will occur as we do that testing. But to show you what that looks like in a full scene, I'm just happy where this has gone, and I've lost track of all that's happened up to this point. Yeah. So, I guess I'll talk a little bit about what's happened. I guess it's mainly been bug fixes, UI re-implementations, implementing new moves, new enemies, and also redoing how everything works. And again, I'll just show you everything that's up front first. In the front end, I guess compared to the last vlog, it doesn't look like a lot has actually changed. It appears very surface level, and it's hard to tell what has actually happened. So, yeah, this hedgehog's doing that. Yeah, it's a lot more happening UI-wise, and also attack-wise, it's a lot more interesting. The game's gonna break as soon as I kill an enemy, by the way, so... Because I realized I've been trying to fix one issue, but trying to fix that one issue has caused problems, basically. And yeah, I hope you like what you're seeing. It's just, I'm kind of happy where this is going. I'm not at a stage yet where I'm ready to start prototyping anything. It's just mainly, for me, it's a huge emphasis. Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. It's already broken, so yeah. I'm just happy with the progress on all of this just because it means I'm moving a lot of steps forward in terms of mechanics, in terms of implementation, especially the programming side of things. I would honestly say it has improved a lot. So that is enough of the juicy parts. We're going to go straight into the raw work parts of this whole project. So moving on to my Trello board. So if you're not familiar with what this is, or if you're new to game dev, or you just don't know what these are, it's kind of like a to-do list. It is actually, no, it's pretty much a to-do list. It's a way of tracking how, what work I've done and whatnot, and Trello is really good for that. You can see that the URL in the top bar there. I'm not going to tell you what to do or how to look for it. You can kind of look at it. Maybe I'll put a link. I don't. Probably not. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. So I have been tracking quite a bit of work. Admittedly, I have been working slowly at this and just been caught up with other things in life, playing other games, doing life things, because again, this is all a hobby at the moment. And yeah, so let's see. The last video would have been kind of after this point, which is to add the enemy highlights. Whether or not that was in the video, I'm not sure, but now you do know. So there's been a lot of bug fixes, mainly, what if the target is dead, while I'm still doing an attack? That's been fixed. What if, okay, I've created an Overwatch effects for an attack. Enemy behavior. So this was an interesting one. So I might have talked about this in a previous video, but basically what this is about is the fact that before, okay, so we'll go back into our Unity thingo and show you what that is about. So let's bring this up. Zoom in a little bit for the benefit of your beautiful eyes. Okay, so what are we looking for? We're looking at scripts. So basically what we had before, I believe I explained this in the past. That's step one. Look for the thing. Turn around, spin around, say bow, and wow to the moon. Okay, so with combat, we had what was called a player combat controller, and we've also had an enemy combat controller. So I think that would probably be in scrap scripts. Yeah, here it is. So before, the way that the enemies were controlled was basically there was one script that would control every enemy on the screen. The problem with that is okay, I want these penguins here who are going to be acting randomly and whatnot. They only have one attack, but the point is acting randomly. But I want this hedgehog to only guard for like when he's at max health, and then once he's less, he's taking damage, he just spams, barrage moves and just spams attacks. Trying to create a script that covers everything in one place does not work. Straight up, I think, if you know anything about programming, that just creates too many complex situations where, even if I want multiple different enemies or I want to spin up the variety, that just screams bad programming. So I'm kind of glad that I got around to this and actually turned it around and attached what is essentially behavior scripts, which basically means that every enemy now is in charge of their own behavior. What are they doing for that turn? What is their script? Basically, in a regular turn-based RPG, this is the enemy script. What does it do? And all of that. Of course, there's not too many fields or move orders and whatnot. I just have a random script at the moment, but the plan is in the future, future prototyping and implementation is that I might make other behavior scripts for very specific fights. For example, maybe I want a certain type of enemy that, does different things at different stages and different orders, and that requires a unique script. I mean, the ideal scenario is maybe I could create a custom script, but I think for now, this implementation works very well for me. So we'll just move up the Trello board some more. I'll try to keep this as speedy as I can because I don't want this to be another 20-minute video. Okay, so that was one of the more exciting things. Oh yeah, so these two are related to the barrage move and as well as the Overwatch move. So those have been done. I've already shown that off to you. Battle UI. Okay, ensure that all enemies targeting. So again, that probably shouldn't be there again. Yeah, I'll fix that in a bit. Okay, encounter, do initiative rolls. So what was weird is that I had a friend playtest an earlier prototype of my game, and the thing was just really buggy at the time. But also on top of that, I was just showing off their time bars, and he was saying it's weird that they all attack at the same time. Final Fantasy, you don't really notice that. And the main reason you don't notice that in Final Fantasy is because at any one point in time, there's only one attack happening on the screen at any point of time. You never have two enemies attacking at the same time in Final Fantasy 8, 7, 6, so on and so forth. I think the only time that has ever been the case is probably Final Fantasy 12 and 13. So to me, it was just like, oh, right. You probably want that kind of illusion where you want it to be like the other Final Fantasies where the enemies don't all attack at once. So maybe as a possibility, we could also make them all attack at once if it's for a coordinated attack. Maybe it's the three penguins doing a supercharged attack together. Whatever. So yeah, and that's where the initiative roles idea comes from. Whether or not this will be good further down the road is another question, but for now I like the idea. Oh, right. This should be pink. just to quickly explain the colors, wait. The colors on these basically to-do notes, or these sprint items, whatever you want to call them, so pink refers to a specific script where, an encounter is basically the encounter script itself, but moves is not a script. It's kind of a area or a topic, or I don't know. It's a thing. It's basically a thing. So moving forward, moves, fix moves without effects. So this was down to the fact that I changed the way that moves work. In order to make the barrages work, basically what I was having was this problem where, okay, the effects determines when the damage goes off, right? So the idea was, when a move is used and an object is created to make the move happen, that object would then create the effects, and the effects would then reach that point in animation where it tells the object, hey, the animation's done, implement the damage. And that did not work with the barrage moves. So in order to fix that, it was basically, all the effects that were supposed to happen when the FX occurs, I've scripted it so that now that is on the FX object. So maybe just to explain this real quickly. Oh, we wouldn't be able to explain using that. What? No, I won't explain it. But basically what was happening is just that in order to make the barrage moves work again, the previous implementation would have made it very difficult to make repeating effects. And I've had to change it so that the effects itself is in charge of implementing all the damage rather than having one thing that implements all the damage. Yeah. If you guys want to know more about it, I'm happy to make another video. Okay, moving up again some more. So battle UI, remove enemy UI items so you guys see that. Fix the text size, make sure it fits into boxes. This is an issue you might not have seen in earlier vlogs. And that was because it was only an issue that would pop up on a higher resolution, which was kind of bothersome to start, but I fixed it since then. You wouldn't be able to tell. Next step, combat moves. Add identifier for moves stating whether or not it is an attack, spell, or technique. So this was because I was implementing that Final Fantasy menu of, attack, magic, technique, all that sort of stuff. So they all need new identifiers now. Actually, since that is one of the more interesting points, I'll be going over the scripts in a later part of this video if you stick around for that. Or you can skip to it, whichever. Just because it is a bit interesting how it's implemented. Like, it's just because of a lot of things. I'll explain it in a bit. Okay, battle UI, dispose menus. So a lot of this is just like little work to make the new UI implementations work. So remove enemy highlights. Yeah, these are kind of repeated tasks. And what needs to be done, so you might have noticed earlier in this vlog that when an enemy dies, they kind of like flash red for a bit and then disappear. So there's been an issue with how they're dying, and it's not working properly, basically. And then alternate, what else? Yeah, and then there's just a bunch of whole other things to go about. So, let's go to the code. Go to code. Most fun part, obviously. Steal as much as you want. So, I guess since one of the main changes has been, like, the battle UI as well as combat moves. So, in order to implement the new UI, the thing was I had to change a lot of things. The first thing was the old method for how I was handling, a player turn was to have handle quick menu go off, then handle targeting go off after quick menu. And let's say you, the player, decide, hey, I maybe want to change my move. Oh, crap. I would go like, okay, press cancel, go back to the quick menu here. Thing is, that does not work when you have three menus, or basically three menus. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Because if you think about it one way, the initial implementation with the big kind of menu that's the first menu, and then the targeting is kind of like another menu. You're still selecting your targets. So to get around that, I've just kind of made once. This shouldn't be called handle quick menu at this point. This should just be called handle player turn, because just look at this. From 65 to 558. That's how many lines are in there. For reference, this is handle targeting. There's about, 270 lines of code in there, and this has about 500 in there. I can justify it, I swear. No, I actually... Yeah, it's really hard to divvy this up, but I've tried to make this as compact and as reusable as possible. It's just that there's a lot of declaration that goes on when it comes to these menus, especially on a player turn. And honestly, I would not segment this at all. I, if you're doing IT in uni, you're probably thinking, wait, this is not very OOP out of view. You should be using, you should turn these all into methods. And it's just like, no, that's a bad idea, because then it becomes even harder to read. So it actually becomes a lot harder to read, and also probably a lot harder to implement, since this is an enumerator and whatnot. You can't just split off the functions. So if we go through step by step, first part of this code is basically just saying everything we need for this, for the UI to work. So, we have the strings. These are kind of just dictionary terms, so that I don't kind of screw up the spelling at any point. Then we have our menu options. Those are lists. And then our list of moves that the player character will have. Then the targets. Okay, so this is just an empty thing, but this is what's going to be passed on to the combatant, like the character itself, once it's time to do the attack. So the first step is collecting information about what attacks the player has. So, we divide them into the list. So, because, again, the user character has a move pool, and we need to identify which one they have, because that will determine what options we have for that character once we create the menu UI item. Next step, quick menu. We instantiate it, put on the canvas transform, we set that up, set up the next UI item, which is the info text, that beautiful thing that tells you what the move does. And then the next step here is creating the text items that say, hey, this character has an attack, this character has a magic option, this character has a technique option. So that's the next step. And I think I'll take this point to say why I've decided not to just divvy this up into methods. Because one is that these things don't repeat. So if I do set them up as separate methods, it's just like, I'm only going to use them in this one method, which then makes it really complicated if I want to change things. So I'm going back and forth, whereas having it in this format is actually very step by step, and that makes it easier. I wouldn't say this is the proper term for it, but I kind of base the writing of this code on functional programming, and I would encourage you to explore the idea if you have not explored functional programming once, especially for you uni students. If you guys are uni students or you're new to programming and you're being poisoned with, okay, not poisoned, but you've been educated on object-oriented programming that tells you to make methods out of everything, modularize everything. Yeah. So just having it step by step is really good here. So as we go on, we continue to list all the things that we do need for these menu items to work. And then we finally get to the cream, well, not the cream, but the main sauce of the script, where that makes everything work. Because this is where the extra 400 lines of code comes in. So the reason why I like this implementation so much more is that, one, I only need to state these if conditions once. Although they're a bit more packed, just because I need to include certain situations like, which menu are we at? Are we doing the option menu? Okay, this is how much we affect the selection index or whatever. For example, okay, O is kind of my assets button. I will say I do need to change these get key downs to be actual buttons rather than keyboard buttons, if that makes sense. Instead of saying key code W, it should be accept rather, because what if I want to change the controls at some point? Digressing. So again, continuing on, we press O, confirm selection equal true. So whatever you press here, that will then affect what phase you're in. So if you do press, for example, P, which is the cancel button, you go back a menu. And I won't go over too much of this, but the whole idea is it's a very sequential thing, and it is step by step. And I'm happy with it because it is, okay, even though I've pointed out the fact that it's got 500 lines of code in this bit here, if I actually kind of fully implement these, I guess because part of the reason why it has 500 lines of code is we've added an extra menu that considers magic, technique, and items. It separates those rather than just slapping them onto one giant menu. But besides the point, I think if we did these two properly, we would see a lot more lines of code because, alright, main beef of this code is going to be into targeting. I know it looks really little at the moment with only 150 lines. Dear God, right? It's so little. But, okay, actually, I'll close this because that's a big old tree of things. If we look here, I don't even know if you want to look here. It is just so crowded. Basically, there's a whole lot of things going here, and there's a lot of repeated code, which is one of the things I hate about this implementation. Yeah, I know, right? Turn them into methods. You're using repeated code. No, I can't, because it's all different situations, different variables. And that's what I like about this new implementation, because everything happens in this top part here. It's really easy to, reuse the code. I'm reusing the code by just having it done earlier, by having a coverall situation. So, yeah, I'll just briefly go through these. So basically, whatever is happening with the move that's been selected, if you select a move that, say, for example, is all enemies, then we just go straight to what needs to be done in that situation. And let's say you're targeting one enemy, or anyone really. Then you just, handle whatever needs to be done when it comes to the selection, selection move 2, selection index, all that sort of stuff. And then, so that's what this chunk of code basically does. It just picks out who the enemies are. Then it waits for, I'll close that, whether or not the player has confirmed their selection or canceled a selection. And it's really simple. Look how simple that code is. It's literally just 2 lines for confirmed selection. It's like, your turn's done, set the current move and targets, and tell the player character to do that move. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that is it in terms of explaining that. What else was I thinking? Yeah, I think that's all I want to explain for now. Thank you for watching it. I might come up with a demo very soon, just once I get these few bugs fixed up. And yeah, if you've enjoyed anything, or you have any questions, or you want me to cover something, just shoot a comment. And yeah,